Get us, you can have the Paloma as well. Get us 2 Palomas and a vodka pizza. What? Vodka pizza? What? Just vodka sauce pizza. We'll get really.
All right. So what is a vodka pizza?
So penne alla vodka, like it's such a New York City grandma staple.
Yeah.
It's you. Just full disclosure, I can't fucking cook to save my life. Like I used to boil water. I used to put water in a mug in the microwave to make it hot.
Yeah.
To make coffee, like the Nescafe 3-in-1. I'm not even a sophisticated coffee drinker. Anyway, so vodka sauce, you just literally boil the vodka with a tomato sauce until it evaporates. And there's a couple of little secret things here and there.
Is there a zing? Do I feel it?
You know, because the alcohol evaporates, so it just leaves whatever sugar stays in. That becomes like the little taste, right? So it tastes like something that doesn't taste like usual, and it's baked burrata as well. It's a pretty ridiculous combination.
So what you order it? Is it just the taste is completely different?
It's amazing. You'll try it now. It's awesome. I mean, New York's like my favorite city on the planet. For at least the cities that I've been to, and vodka sauce pasta is it's like a thing. It's like everyone's Italian grandma used to make it. And there's a huge debate about who made it first. Was it the Italians that moved to New York, or was it the Italians in Italy? So there's always like, no, we did it first, but we don't really do vodka in Italy. Like you're more of a wine country. No, but my grandmother's, and Esther, and they tracked it back to like 1910. Some dude had it in his restaurant. Anyway, so that's not why we put it here. We put it here because I have crazy New York nostalgia. We did a New Yoku pizza. I was on this Made in Dubai episode, and they cut obviously the whole conversation. It just stayed about us making probably one of the most debatably interesting things I've said. We're trying to make a New York style pizza, but Japanese Italian style. And I'm quoting myself here. It's the dumbest thing I've ever said. But we're talking about one specific pizza on the menu, which is called the New Yorker, the New Yoku, which is inspired by New York, but it's a Japanese tech and Italian ingredients. So that's kind of the the mix.
In that scene, then, in the restaurant scene, are you appreciated for your creativity, or are you not?
I don't think I'm appreciated for my food creativity because everyone knows I'm not a chef in any shape or form. I don't know how to make anything. So Billy, my ops director, who's now my COO actually, he creates the menus. I just try them and I nod, and he decides to agree with me or not. He puts it on the menu. He knows what works. So yeah, I'm not the foodie in the relationship. I mean, I like food, but I'm not like sophisticated, and I sit there and I analyze and I wonder what ingredients are in here and how long this took. I don't have that level of sophistication with food. If it's good, do you really care how it's made? Like,
not at all, dude.
You know what I mean? Like, I know people really get into it, and like we say, it's 26-hour proof dough. Most people look at me like, oh, 26 hours, wow.
What does that even mean?
The dough sits in a cedar wood tray for 26 hours, so it puffs up. And we don't use semolina, we don't use yeast. Okay. So our doughs, that's what makes our dough very light, the Akiba dough. It's just 170 grams of dough. Wow. Your typical American pizza is like a couple of hundred, like 300 plus, maybe even 400. So, but when I tell someone, 26-hour proof, in my mind, I'm like, they're going to be like, what? Call people now and tell them. And they're like, okay, that's cool. I mean, is it normally more? I'm like, oh, forget it. I'm not even. So yeah, you'd be surprised how little people know about food.
Dude, you'd be surprised how much I don't know about this concept. I feel like all I know is that I saw it once in D3, and then it just blew up, and now it's everywhere, and you're opening them like every month there's a new location. What's the story behind Akiba Dori?
The story behind Akiba Dori. I can't talk about Akiba Dori without talking about everything else I've done before, which is nightlife. So I was a nightlife guy. So again, I love music. I wanted to do something that is anti the status quo. So I open all these random nightclubs where you can rock up in like jeans and a t-shirt and sneakers and have a good time, whether you spend $100 or $1,000. Stereo Arcade, Republic, One-on-One, all these other places that I've done. So it started with Republic actually in 2011. That was the first Paloma. So I actually put this on the menu because of a friend of mine named Sammy who is obsessed with them. I even called it the Paloma as a tribute to him.
In honor of him.
Yes. So cheers. Take a sip. Make sure it's good. So anyway, because of nightlife, nightlife makes a lot of money, like substantial amounts of money. But in terms of, the length of the business, it's 3 to 4 years, and you have to rebrand, rebuild it, or do something crazy to change it up. That's just the standard. So even if you're super successful, the odds of you franchising or expanding a nightlife brand overseas, I mean, very few. I'm talking globally have been able to do that.
Yeah.
Like a couple of Lebanese brands came here, a couple of British brands came here.
Sure.
But how many brands nightlife have left Dubai to go internationally? Although Dubai is great for nightlife.
Yeah.
But Beirut is actually better for nightlife, and this is a fact, right? Well, maybe not right now, but I'm just saying in terms of creativity and crowd and vibes and whatever. So, but for food, Dubai is incredible compared to a lot of other cities in the world.
I mean, recently.
Yeah, the last couple of years, let's say. The last couple of years. Of course, I mean, because we went from franchise city at one point.
I was going to say, like, last 5 years, we've been really...
5, 6 years, 100%.
Yeah.
It's spoiled almost. Like, to the point where you go to other cities, you're like...
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same effect because
I used to say that about Dubai. I used to say Dubai was pretty shit for food.
Yeah, it was again franchise city because it was much easier. Why would I work on creating a brand, take a risk, get into a market I maybe don't really know that well if I can just bring a franchise in and everybody knows it? I mean, why would you build your own burger joint if you can get McDonald's? I mean, but by the way, that still actually is pretty true if McDonald's as like the base case for fast food burgers. But so with Akiba, I want to make it sound a lot more romantic than it is, but it was a lot of research. So I looked at the most popular cuisines around the world. I looked at the most popular cuisines in Dubai. So I read a lot of data, a lot of articles, did a lot of research, and I realized one of the most underserviced segments of the market was actually affordable luxury Japanese food. Everything was either Peruvian, which is Japanese Peruvian, so it's a mix of like this fusion Japanese and South American, Latin American, or it was fast food Japanese, like super fast casual, you know. So there was no real in between other than a couple of places plastered around. But the second you went to a hotel, your prices went up. And the second you went to a mall, your prices went down. So you couldn't really get a licensed Japanese restaurant outside one of those two universes. So when D3 came along and they had the option of getting a license, in the beginning, I wanted to open a wine bar. Really, and I have a crazy concept for a wine bar that I still want to do one day. Because I'm like, there are no cool wine bars ever since the agency closed down. And the agency was a hotel wine bar. It wasn't really like a concept wine bar, and it worked perfect. It was actually great. It was one of my favorite places to go when I first moved here 18 years ago, whatever. So I wanted to put a wine bar there. Then I started asking around, spending a couple of days a week there. I'm like, nobody sticks around after work in D3. People get in their cars and get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Everybody. Like there's literally a rush hour between 5 and 6 p.m. So I'm like, what am I building a wine bar for? Nobody's going to come have wine at lunch. I mean, not everybody, but most people won't do it. Yeah, so no one's going to stay after work. So who am I building this for? It doesn't make sense. I want to build for the community first. That was always my objective, which is why I went to D3 first. Because I love that community. The community that's in D3, the people that are there, it's an incredible community. Like really. So I'm like, Japanese, okay. But I don't want to do a traditional Japanese. Why don't I want to do a traditional Japanese? This is like a pet peeve or some weird thing that I have, but I don't believe you can be authentic outside the country of origin.
I was just going to say, could you actually pull off an authentic Japanese?
If I was Japanese and I'm able to import every single item off my menu from Japan, from produce, from everything that you would expect
but the
in
execution
Tokyo,
becomes super complex.
then I understand. Then I can claim that I'm authentic. But I'm Lebanese, one. Been living in the Gulf my whole life. So I'm more Khaliji than I am Lebanese at this point. Okay. I'm actually super Americanized. So nothing in me is really Japanese at all, other than my obsession with like anime, not anime, actually more anime for video games and sneakers. So yeah, that's literally where it stops. And I obviously love Japanese food. But with Akiba, I also wanted a brand or a name that I could own globally. So I started, it was so difficult to find a name you could trademark everywhere. You can't just go, oh, I'm going to call it Samer. And then, no, somebody's trademarked that name. So I had to combine really random words that don't necessarily even work in Japan to create Akiba Dori. So it started with a brand. I'm like, what is the brand first? Before I talk about menu, design, anything, what is this brand? It's a not serious, democratized Japanese street food concept. That's where I was. I'm like, I want to make Japanese street food not just accessible, but easy for people. Most high-end Japanese restaurants, you have to Google half the things on the menu if you're there for the first time. It's not something that's
super intimidating.
So I wanted idiot-proof Japanese. I want you to walk in, look at my menu, and be like, oh, I know 99% of this menu. Which, for me at least, as a diner, I'm always happier when I go to a restaurant. I don't need the waiter to explain what it is. It's practical. One, from a service perspective, it makes life easier because you don't want your server standing at tables explaining what things are. You don't want people to think unagi is something from Friends and stuff like that. So, you know what I mean? So you start putting all this together. You're like, okay, I need something super simple. It has to be attractive enough for people of any age to want to come and check it out. And also it has to be sophisticated enough for people who like food. Oh, Vodka Pizza, that's what I'm talking about. For people who like food to appreciate it. You don't want people who like food to be like, oh, the place looks amazing, but the food is debatable. So, which was the more complicated part, which is where I have Billy. So Billy, my COO, is the guy who comes up with the menus and works and develops and does everything. So I'm gonna pause until you. Yeah, it's still very hot. I can literally see the flames, kind of. What do you think of the Paloma?
Splendid, man. It's amazing. The danger of this podcast veering is very high.
It's okay. That's kind of the idea. So again, wanted a brand that I can own. I wanted a brand that I can own globally, like from a trademark perspective. I wanted a brand from a look perspective that doesn't look like anybody else.
Wow. Not bad, man. And the dough is crazy.
Yeah, the dough's nuts. Well, it's a wood-fired oven. Yeah, you guys have to try this.
It's amazing.
It's good, right? I mean, it's better than good. So again, wood-fired oven, except for Dubai Hills. Dubai Hills is gas-fired because the malls you can't really do wood-fired.
To the point of the pizza, man.
Yeah.
It's not Japanese.
So the flour is Japanese. So we bring the flour from Japan in a special powder. Okay. It's not what you're thinking. It's kind of like a bran powder. And the technique of stretching the dough is exclusive to Tokyo-style Neapolitan. So if you see the way Italians make pizzas, either with a rolling pin or they flip it around, none of that happens here. It's stretched on the peel. It's a very complicated pizza to make.
You do it yourself here?
Yeah, not me, myself. Obviously, it'd be embarrassing. But the guys, of course. So we make the dough balls. They 26-hour proof that I was talking about. Everyone get excited right now.
In the cedar box, sorry?
Yeah, in a cedar wood box. Yeah. And we make 100 a day. That's our limit. We sell 100, we're done. Even if it sells out, I don't want to have food waste, so it's a major part of the concept as well.
I've never heard you guys talk about this, or maybe I'm not aware. Maybe I'm not in tune.
We talk about it, but it's not sexy for people. Like
what
food
do you
waste,
mean?
because food waste is not a big deal for people. It's fine. Look at brunches. Look at brunch culture here. Yeah. I mean, even Ramadan, look at iftar culture. How much food now? It's much better. But man, the amount of food that you used to get thrown out was horrible. Now it's much better. But I've seen things, man, in brunches. I've seen
I mean,
really disturbing things.
Yeah.
Obviously, it took a huge initiative for people to be like, you can't keep doing this. Food waste cannot be something that's normal and like, it's fine. It's not acceptable. So that was kind of one of the reasons behind it. And also to keep the thing fresh and whatever. So with the concept, again, it's a Japanese street food concept for people that have never been to Japan. Like me, I've never been to Japan. So I don't know where the hell I got the inspiration from, but I've never been there, so I can't claim that I have. Yeah. So, but I was inspired by stories that I made up in my mind about the street Akihabara, which is, they call it Electric Town. So it's called Electric Town because we literally used to buy electronics there. So in my mind, the same GIs that were stationed in Japan that created the souvenir jackets, you know, those the varsity jackets, they used to rip the arms off and put like these really cool Japanese the cool
kind of symbols and
exactly on them, like the different fabrics and whatever. So the same people who would do that would have probably gone around looking for like gray market goods. And what better place to hide gray market goods than a street full of neon lights, and it's so bright the authorities don't even know what you're up to.
Amazing.
You know, so that was the idea. So if you're going to sell fake goods in Dubai, where would you sell it? In Karama.
Yeah, 100%.
Why? Because it's all freaking lights everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the same idea.
Needle in a haystack.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something that's a bit of a neon inspiration. We get misquoted big time in the press all the time saying, oh, it's anime inspired. There's no anime inspiration. We had a couple of cool doodle cartoon characters that my graphic designers that are based in the Dominican Republic created for us, actually, Chris and Gina. But it's a neon back alley street. That's what it is. You're on a random street. And since no one believes you're on an indoor street, we made it ridiculous. Like if you go to any of the Akiba Doris, you look at the floor, it's always kind of inspired by what's happening outside. So you look at the D3 interlock, we did the same thing inside D3. You come here to JBR, to the beach, you walk outside, it kind of continues into it. So there's always that mix. But since no one would believe, no one's going to be like, oh, I feel like I'm on a street. I don't want people to feel like they're on the street. I want them to feel like this could be a back alley.
So what's the 80s vibe to it though? I'm feeling 80s vibe big time when I come here. I don't know what it is. It's got that.
It's the music.
Vintage, retro
Well, first
feel.
of all, anything neon is always 80s.
Yeah.
Because that was a decade of neon, right?
100%, you're right.
So the music we play here is actually synthwave and retrowave.
Yeah.
So this whole movement, and I've been following these guys for like a decade. There's a whole movement on SoundCloud of all these kids, literal kids, making music that is better than most of the music in the 80s. So I've had some of them create music for us that they've been paid for. Stereo Arcade had a whole soundtrack that we owned. Like we owned that soundtrack. Like all these artists created it for us. So I did the same thing with here a little bit. And we do Japanese hip hop some days as well. So it's a mix of Japanese underground hip hop. We work with a DJ in Tokyo called Keiro. He makes us constantly, he keeps making new playlists. We even have an Emirates channel. We have an Akiba Dori channel on Emirates. It's all Japanese hip hop. People email us randomly saying, where can we get the music from? Yeah. So I direct them to his YouTube channel because he has a YouTube channel. So that's the 80s vibe you're getting. If you come here at night, it's super dark, and every location is always dark. Akiba's dark. It's a back alley. During the day, it's bright because natural sunlight, whatever. But in the evenings, it's freaking dark. Like you're in here, you're like, whoa, this is like a proper nightlife vibe.
It's got almost that Tron underbelly.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I'm an 80s nut job. Like everything I do, if I could just, I mean, that's
so,
what, yeah.
So straight up, I wanted to ask you, I think every single person who has a regular day job dreams of being the guy who owns and runs a restaurant. I mean, me included. What makes you, in your opinion, good at doing this specifically? You have your creative background, maybe, but like, what is it that makes you good at this?
I don't even know if I'm good at it yet. I'll tell you in a couple of years if I'm good at it. I'm good at opening places, yes. I'm a good startup guy, I think. I don't think it's necessarily F&B. I mean, I'm in other businesses, but I don't talk about them because.
But you made a living from it. Yeah, you're doing what you want from it. Yeah, that's how we define success. It's not going to be a ticket, right?
So my objective, from when I left, I was at an agency called BBDO. I was at BBDO, which is like the agency, for 9 months, 18 years ago. Yeah. And I quit after 9 months. I couldn't do the suit and tie, couldn't do the contact reports with the clients.
But you figured out the basics of building a brand. Maybe.
I think I always knew that. I mean, I threw a music festival when I was 15 years old with two of my friends. Like we rented this country club, branded the whole thing, got DJs, Mad Jam was one of the DJs then. There's a band called Scrambled Eggs. Like I had all these crazy brands from Lebanon. I was a 15-year-old kid. Like borrowed $1,000 from my dad, which I never paid him back for. I'm like, Dad, I need $1,000 to do a music festival. He's like, what are you talking about? You're 15, go play basketball. I'm like, I know, but I want to do this. So I've always liked stuff like this. I like entertaining people.
That's the thing. You're a hoster.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not so much these days. I'm in bed by 10, but then again, I'm up at 6 because, you have
kids?
2-year-old kid and 2 dogs. Yeah. So, well, it's not actually, I wake up before her. She's a deep sleeper, this kid. She just keeps going. Yeah, we have a system where we don't tell her when to sleep. She sleeps whenever she wants. We're trying something new here, Got a crypto fund for her for when she turns 18. She doesn't want to go to college. She doesn't have to. She wants to start a business. Again, that's a very tough topic to discuss with the grandparents. What do you mean doesn't go to college? I'm like, what do you mean? She doesn't have to. Yeah, especially if you're Lebanese.
But you're good at this because you like experiences, you like hosting, you're a people person.
I think I'm good at this because I hate everything else. I can never do the corporate thing anymore. It's just not possible for me to do it for any amount of money. And I've obviously over the years, I've been offered different things in different organizations. And I just couldn't wrap my head around doing that again.
What do you love about this the most?
Well, F&B in general, I think is kind of in its own way an art, because it's one thing to make really good food. It's one thing to create a really good brand, but it's a whole other world to put them together and make them work. Because you have a lot of places that look incredible, but the food and service, unacceptable. Then some places look horrible, but the food is spectacular. Yeah. It doesn't mean that if a place looks better, the food's gonna be better, but it helps because you're going out because you want a bit of a vibe, you want to feel like you're somewhere different, you're disconnecting from your usual world. A metaverse, if you will, in real life. But when you go to a restaurant that looks horrible, and the food is amazing, you'll come back for the food potentially. But if you go to a restaurant that looks amazing, but the food's bad, you won't come back.
Yeah, which are a dime a dozen.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that going on. And I think for me, it's a creative outlet. One, I love building brands. It's what I love doing more than anything else. It doesn't necessarily mean I only know how to build F&B brands. I can build a brand for anything. I'm sure of it. If you tell me right now, build a watch brand, I could probably do it. Build a car brand, I could probably do it. It's just what I feel like it's a force greater than me this is something that I really love doing. And I wasn't really able to do that being in advertising, being in client servicing, being told by clients, like, we should put this on a billboard. I'm like, what's the logic? Because we have money. Okay. Sure, that's one logic.
But then on that note, what's the definition of a successful brand in your mind?
A brand that keeps paying its staff their salaries. I think first and foremost, a brand that looks after its people that's the most successful brand.
Yeah, I guess the sustainability of keeping it alive, and it's having
if you're paying your staff, they're getting their salaries on time, everyone's happy, and they're working happy. They're not stressed about making their own rent and dealing with their own lives. You can have a very productive business that everyone looks after. Yeah. If your staff feel disconnected, it's just a salary, it's just a job. They'll move on to the next place for 10% more and not really turn around, even give you a second look. You know, I do have a central command, if you will, for the business. I mean, I have my ops team. I take no credit for anything operations related. I'm not an operator. I don't manage anything. I'm not even that great at managing people, to be honest with you. It's not really something that I enjoy doing.
Okay.
I just think I know how to pick the right people who know how to do that.
The right teams?
Yeah.
Is it a cultural thing, you think? Like your value system, your morality, your kind of...
Look, I mean, you never know what someone's values are until they're tested, right? Yeah. How often do people get tested? Very little.
Until they get pushed in the corner.
Well, exactly. So, I mean, when it gets to that point, yeah, I guess everyone can turn into anything, right? There's no person that's, oh, you're super moral no matter what. I mean, I guarantee you there are situations the most moral person on the planet will do things that are immoral just to get out of a jam.
100%.
That's just how it is. I mean, if anyone says no, the moral to the end, that's being a...
And granted, no one's born evil, but if you're putting anyone in any situation...
Yeah, and plus, it's relative, right?
Yeah.
I mean, evil based, what are you comparing evil to, right? It's not... I wish it was that simple. This is evil. Oh, I mean, okay, So, from a brand success, again, it is taking care of your people because they take care of your business for you and they take care of your brand for you. And they understand that it's a brand. You have a lot of people where the staff don't really understand who they're representing or what they do there.
But that's generally the fault of the brand itself.
Of course, it's a fault of the management.
Yeah.
Because how can people know how to act if you haven't told them what to do?
Yeah.
You can't throw somebody in a pool and be like, figure it out. Yeah, your first instinct is probably to try to keep yourself afloat. But if eventually people are going to drown. Yeah. So unless you have good guidance, you're just setting up yourself, you're setting yourself up for failure. And your people for failure.
I want to ask you something. You're what, at 6 locations now?
6, yes.
6 locations.
And 2 international, 2 in Saudi.
So you're super busy. I know you're super busy because trying to get you to sit down and have a podcast.
Yeah. Well, I did open 6 restaurants in 6 months. If I include the second one in Abu Dhabi. So yeah, which is insane, by the way. Just to put
totally
that out
insane.
there.
And I think you should definitely take credit in the accomplishment itself.
Not credit. I just want a break. if I even get one.
Hopefully you will soon. But I wanted to ask you, like, you're a dad. You're super active, kind of socially, I think, publicly. You opened 6 restaurants in 6 months. Something I struggle with all the time is prioritization and figuring out what's most important to me, like in my life. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to ask you, how do you kind of juggle that shit? Because I feel like we live in a society where we're trying to be, at least our generation, the best dad possible. We're trying to be the most fit we've ever been in our life. Yeah. We're trying to be the social warriors to fix the world. We're trying to be abreast of all the future technology and be in the front of fucking anything crypto or meta. We're trying to, we're trying to be the best.
Trying to build new industries.
Yeah, we're constantly pushing the boundaries of what we're actually capable of. But fundamentally, how do you prioritize what's actually important?
I'm really extreme. I don't believe in multitasking as a concept. Like, I think people like to say it because they think it's like that one guy one time who said, we only use 10% of our brain. I mean, if that really happened, we'd be potatoes. It's not possible. That's not how the body works.
Okay.
And if your hair's wet, you get a cold. So we've fallen into the old wives' tales, and I hate saying that whole statement, but unfortunately it's true. Of like, so and so said that, so it must be true. Milk is good for you in the 80s. It's not good for you anymore. Cheese is good for you. Fat's good for you. So there's a narrative, and this is where everyone has to be careful. If you're going to follow the narrative, you're literally only following what the best interest of a couple of people.
Of that niche.
Yes, of that industry, that nation, that culture, whatever it is. So it's a narrative. You have to separate the narrative from the reality.
Yeah.
So if you start digging deeper, just a little bit deeper into anything, you'll realize that you absolutely have to prioritize, at least for me, your own well-being, because people are counting on you. You can't take care of other people and then take care of yourself. What is the first thing they tell you on a plane if oxygen masks drop?
Put your mask on first.
First, why? Yeah, great. Everyone wants to be a hero. Oh, I saved 5 people. Yeah, okay. Well, we need you.
We can't do anything with you.
It's the same concept. Yeah. If you're not good, you won't be able to take care of your family, your extended family, your parents, kid, wife,
Okay,
husband.
so what's your priority? You first? Your
Well, me by extension is my business, right?
Sure.
Because my business is my sustainability.
Sure.
So until there's a world where we're bartering everything and I can barter what I make for, which was probably going to happen. I mean, eventually is the way things are going with fiat currencies, but maybe too extreme for now, but people have to wrap their heads around that.
It's
Yes,
happening.
maybe
It's happening.
it is going to happen. I mean, it's going to become a very normal thing because eventually people are like, I don't want money
happening.
anymore. Give me the
Totally
service.
happening.
Give me a product.
totally happening.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. And so prioritize what actually pays your bills.
yeah. What makes me able to continue having the freedom that I have? So the reason I left corporate is I don't want someone to tell me, Samer, this is what you do with your time. I don't want to do billable hours. I'm not interested in that business in any shape or form. So for me, literally my only objective was to be free with my time. That's it. So I will do whatever it takes for that to happen.
So define that. Define that. Like, is that like,
So I'm having this, boozy lunch with you on a Tuesday. It's 2:40 p.m.
yeah, you do that by choice.
Nine out of 10 of my friends are in their offices,
Yeah.
maybe making way more money than me and you are making, but this makes me happy.
Same here.
So
Same
that's
here.
it. So that's ultimate. If I feel like, I don't want to, I want to go to the gym at like 11 a.m. is when I go to the gym, for example, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's my gym time now. Like no matter what, 1 hour, my phone's in my locker. I don't care if the world burns down. This is 3 hours a week to myself that no one's allowed to bother me. So having that freedom means you might sacrifice other things. I mean, I always make this I say this as a joke, but it's actually very true. I haven't had a salary since I was 25 years old. So I haven't had a salary in 16 years. If you go tell anybody right now, say, would you do this for 16 years or even 10 years? You know what? 5 years. Would you go 5 years without a salary? What will most people say?
No, hell no.
Because it's the fear of what will happen if I don't have what really will happen. No one's going to go, what's really going to happen? Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Be okay with the worst that's going to happen, and everything else will be easy. Because if the worst thing that's going to happen is my business is going to go bankrupt. I'm going to go move in with my parents in the mountains in Lebanon, just live there and be a farmer. And that's the worst that can happen. Am I okay with that? You know what? It's not so bad. I'll do it. I mean, not everyone has that option. So some people have to have a job. They have to have a salary. I understand. I'm not saying everyone should set up their own business, but I think eventually everyone should have a side hustle.
What's the biggest downside?
You don't have stability. It's very difficult to make plans. Like, you want to make plans, but sometimes you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then 10 things come along that require your immediate attention, and you have to put everything else on hold. And unfortunately, sometimes that's even family. My kid's 2 now. She's full on like blabbermouth. She's like motor mouth. She talks. She has an opinion about stuff. She cracks me up. I mean, the things she does in front of us right now. I mean, for a 2, it's just,
Crazy.
I'm seeing this
wait
kid.
till they're 3.5.
Yeah, so I can't wait, actually.
Crazy.
So I never want to have kids. So for me, this was like a whole new experiment, right? Experience also. So,
So you're defining kind of freedom as flexibility to me,
yeah.
right? It's like I choose when and how and where. Like that's
Yes.
basically it.
Yes.
But you still have to be a responsible human being and be there when you need to be there, right? So freedom does not mean you can
course.
fuck off for 2 months.
Oh, you
right?
can't just be, I'm fucking off, I'm done. No, of course not.
But I think that's a misconception, right? I think people define freedom as I do exactly what I want when I want, and that's not true. You have
do-
responsibilities.
Your freedom, I don't know if it's Machiavelli or who it was, but your freedom ends when the freedom of others begins, right?
Yeah.
So I can say what I have to say about something that means a lot to me within my framework, but I can't come to you and say, dude, this is what I think. You have to listen to what I say.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. Like the age of believing, as we call it, is over. Like when people just have to believe what somebody says. And most people don't want to hear this, especially if you're like religious, for example. You don't want to hear that you can't just believe in things anymore. Now I'm not saying you need concrete evidence, but I'm just saying there has to be an element of truth, and there has to be an element or a burden of proof on people. It's no longer, in school we were taught that this is so and so, so I'm going to believe it forever. But the people who disprove theories and disprove facts, even who come and say scientific theory that's 100 years old is wrong, are the guys that say, or the girls that say, men and women, sorry, so I don't get in trouble, that say, no. I don't think this makes sense. Like, there has to be another way. It can't, Adam Smith, father of economics, said this. So everyone's like, oh, Adam Smith is a god. You can't disprove Adam Smith. And it takes one guy to be like, I don't think so, buddy. I mean, it was great when you were around. No one challenged you. But I think there's a better way. That's how you get innovation. or else everyone would be stuck doing the same exact thing.
But that's been kind of really flipped on its head with COVID, I think. And no one would have believed 3 years ago, 4 years ago that remote work was actually sustainable for any organization. No
I
one
haven't
would
had
have
an
believed.
office in 15 years.
Yeah.
16 years. I've been doing it. So when people are like, oh, it's so great, we're great working from home. I'm like, what do you guys think I've been working from the last decade and a half? And by the way, from my couch in my house, I opened several businesses,
Yeah.
from my couch. No, you know what? I'm gonna make it worse for people that are actually listening. From my pool. I used to go down. I lived at the Address Dubai Mall. I used to go down to the pool, open my laptop, put on my synth and retrowave music, and sit and create concepts and go open them. Stereo Arcade was born in 15 minutes. Me sitting at my pool, thinking about what the hell am I gonna do with that space that I found.
Man, I'm listening to you and like I just have to bring this up. Like I think one of the biggest kind of characteristics of your personality that makes you successful is your sheer confidence that you can fucking do anything. The fact that you can sit at a pool and draw up a concept for a club and just go do it, that's sheer confidence. I think there's like there's like
It's ballsy a little bit.
there's intuition, there's experience, there's for sure lots of skills that you kind of filled your baggage with, but like fundamentally confidence, where did that come from? How did you get that? Because straight up, I'm sorry, to do Akiba Dori, Japanese pizza, I don't know what. And
I don't know. I don't know how to answer
from?
that question. It's weird. I don't know if it's confidence or it's just, like, what's the alternative for me? You know what I mean?
I mean,
So
the
I think
alternative
you
is
have
what
to be that way.
99% of people do, right? Just get a job and get
Yeah.
stability.
So I can't wrap my head around doing that. So for me,
But that's fucked up, dude. Like, I think it's brilliant. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But like fundamentally, like, and I'm with you. I've been in startups my entire life. Like, I've only known building companies
you've only
too.
known startups.
I've only known startups.
Yeah.
Some of my own, some that I was a part of, and that's my entire life. So I get it, but I can't put my finger on it. It's almost like the rebel in you that says, no, I don't conform. But it's also like, I'm like, there's some psychology in there too, man. Like, I don't know if it's the upbringing of our parents, if it's where we grew up, it's our culture. I don't know what it is. But
my dad is super corporate. Like my dad ran a huge company in Saudi for many, many years. He retired only a couple of years ago. My mom in Saudi in the early 90s set up an ad agency for women by women. It was which was crazy. She was in the diplomatic quarter in the DQ.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously I saw that growing up. My mom, like in Saudi, where women weren't allowed to work, setting up an agency and getting clients from other women because she realized, oh, half the businesses in Saudi are in the hands of women, so why wouldn't I cater to them? So it was actually brilliant, right? But then they got shut down 4 years later. They're like, no, business is not for women.
Yeah.
So obviously it's a different story now.
The world has changed.
The world has changed indeed. I mean, for now, it keeps changing, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I think my general attitude, not just in business, but in general, is like literally with almost anything, from relationships to friendships to business to even school, even college, even whatever, is what's the worst that can happen? If I'm not okay with the worst case scenario, I won't do it. Like I won't waste time and energy spending years to build something if I'm worried about losing it. So I lack that emotional attachment, which I think is not, I'm not saying I'm not empathetic. I am to what I believe is a normal,
It almost sounds reckless, you know what I mean? Like if you think about it, right? It's like you're a
it sounds
dad,
reckless.
you have 100 employees. What's the worst that can happen?
Oh no, that's when
Shit can go
that's
down,
before you
you know
start.
what I mean?
I'm talking about starting.
Sure.
Scaling is a different ballgame. Scaling is
But the first risk was small, but that risk is just getting bigger and bigger, but it's the same risk, right? Fundamentally. What's the worst that can happen? I can get a paycheck or I can live on a farm.
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen? I can have 10 employees or have none. What's the worst that can happen? 100 or zero.
Yeah.
It's the same concept. It's just bigger and bigger. You're scaling the risk.
Yeah, of
But
course. I mean,
fundamentally-
ultimately, scaling is risk scaling.
Right?
That's why. Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, it's not. There are groups much bigger than us that wouldn't do 6 restaurants in 6 months. I mean, infinitely bigger than. What group am I talking about? We're like not even a handful of people, right? I mean, my management team. Who's with me? I got 5 people. That's it. That's the team, and we managed to do it. So I think it was like I don't know if it's a personal challenge or what, but most people fail at realizing an opportunity is an opportunity until it's passed. So in 2020, when people were freaking out and downsizing, I was going after landlords trying to get deals.
You saw the opportunity.
Yes, because this has happened before and it
Yeah,
will continue to
it's a
happen. If
cycle.
every single time there's a small dip or a catastrophe or a war, we're going to stop living, then this literally, this is why we would have gone extinct. What, 200,000 years ago, there were like 50,000 quote unquote humans around.
Yeah.
We were done. We were done as a species. We were freaking gone. Two women discovered wheat. They're like, oh, well, we can make something out of this by accident next to the fire.
Thank God for women, huh?
Yeah. Well, in a way, yeah. So, so if you didn't have that spirit in you, that fighting spirit, you just be like, I'm just gonna chill on my couch and see what happens.
Man, straight up, I also feel like I'm just gonna say this. I don't know. It maybe only applies to me, maybe not to you, but I fucking get off on fear. You know what I mean? Like fear is the motivation, somewhat for me. Like the bigger the fall might be,
yeah,
the more interesting it is as an opportunity.
Yeah, that sounds a bit.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the bigger the ambition, the more I want to do it.
Yeah. Well, but see, that's how everyone should think.
But that's what you're doing right now with the 6 restaurants in 6 months.
So if you ask me when we opened Akiba 4 years ago, exactly, almost to this day, I remember having this call with Brian, my one of my main partners, outside my house. Literally standing in front of the window, looking into the house, seeing Darwin, my dog, kind of like perched up, looking at me, and he said, "Let's just break even on this one, because the market, like, we're headed into a weird thing." This is again 4 years ago, so 2018, very weird year. Businesses were losing money left and right. No one was talking about it because in the Arab world, people are ashamed of failing, like it's a crime.
Yeah.
I mean, to some extent, it is a crime here if you fail, but not anymore. I mean, now it's a lot better.
Yeah.
But the most important thing from that conversation was, we were thinking like, we just have to make money back off this because we don't know where the market's headed. And I remember getting off that phone call and going inside and opening up Wikipedia and just looking at all these mega franchises that had started off and like were in dire straits and then turned it around. And I thought, if there was no limit to money, like literally, somebody said to me, "How much do you need to open 100 of these?" Would I do it? And I said immediately, I'm like, yes. Somebody said to me, "How much do you need to open 100 Akiba Doris around the world?" And this was the amount of money. Would I do it? I'd even hesitate to say, "No, I'll think about it." No, I'm like, yes, I will do it 100%. I wouldn't even hesitate for a second. If somebody said, "We want to open 50 of these in the US or 40 of these in the US or 10 of these in India right now and scale globally," not only would I not hesitate, I trademarked Akiba Dori globally then. Before we even, D3 wasn't even open yet. Like I hadn't even opened the first branch. I was trademarked in the UK, in Europe, in India. We hadn't even opened the first one. So what kind of a maniac spends money to trademark a brand in mega areas unless they thought they could take it somewhere? So that was the plan from the beginning. I'm like, you know what? It might be a one-trick pony. It might be 100. It might be 50. It might be 10. But I'm not going to stop until I feel like this is as far as this I can take it. And the best part of this all is there might be people who will take it further than me.
That's what I was going to say next, yeah.
So someone might come and say, "Listen, dude, you've done what you've done. Give it to us. We're going to take it global." Hell yeah. I won't even think twice about it. So again, that's another big thing that most people don't do. They don't want to give away anything. I'd give away half the intellectual property to someone who could take this globally. If somebody like with the right, team and the right
tools,
infrastructure came around and said, "You know what, dude, we want to take this global, but I want half." I'm like, take it.
So what's the vision? Like, what's the vision for Akiba Dori?
North America.
Fuck, it'd be amazing. Where do you start? New York?
Nope.
Where?
Most random places you can imagine. I'll go to North Carolina, Tennessee, Austin.
You have to go Austin.
I go to food cities that are lacking good food. I go to food cities that have a lot of population, people who love food, people who have disposable income, but aren't as cutthroat and brutal as New York. Because New York City will chew you up, spit you out 10 times before you've hit the first year.
Do Montreal, man.
I loved Montreal. I was there a couple of years ago.
I'm from there. My mom's French Canadian. I'm half French Canadian. Yeah, I spend 4 months a year in Montreal.
Montreal's amazing.
Paradise for me. Food culture.
And the food culture is amazing.
Crazy.
The food culture is awesome there.
Restoration there is out of the world.
Yeah.
Dude, what's the so you're obviously, understanding your rate of scale. This is like something you're gonna put a bow around and sell. That's the end game.
Not necessarily.
This could end up being a cash cow and just living off of it and scaling it. And
if I keep scaling it and I can move somewhere for a couple months a year where I have an amazing branch of Akiba Dori somewhere, like super random, like I'm in Paris or I'm in London and I can go there.
That's the dream.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. what I ultimately want to do is something completely different. Ultimately, I think when I'm older and wiser, open a small boutique hotel somewhere with like an awesome restaurant and bar underneath, and that's it. Just live there. I've always lived in hotels. I bought my first couch, I was 36. My first like TV, I was 35. You know, so actually no, I always bought my own TVs because I'm a gamer. Hotel TVs were crap.
Okay, so the dream is to settle.
Not settle. It's more.
But sounds like it.
Be based somewhere for, you know, let's say spend 6 months a year in Dubai and then 6 months a year somewhere else, where it's like almost like a perma vacation.
How do you do that with kids?
I can do that. That's fine. Kid will figure it out. YouTube is a great learning tool.
Yeah, Khan Academy is where you're gonna get your education.
Actually, Khan Academy is better than most schools on the planet.
Hands down.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
We're shopping schools now for Charlotte, my daughter. Homeschooling sounds like a better idea these days.
Schools are terrible. Schools, by definition, are actually terrible places because they don't prepare you for anything.
Yeah, and they hinder development, man, if you ask me.
Yeah, for sure. Dude, I was an average student in school.
I was a shit student.
I was an average student, and my teachers would be like, you know, like, if you don't study and get good grades, how are you going to get a great job? I'm like, I don't want to get a job. Like, what do you mean? What will you be? A farmer? Or what are you going to be? I studied literature in college. I'll never forget the questions I used to get asked. What are you going to be, a teacher? I'm like, first of all, I mean, great if I could be a teacher. I don't think I have the patience for it. But no, what is that? What does the degree have to do with what you do? Like, it has nothing. So this also made me realize it very, very early on that people really don't see past what they've been told to see. Again, the narrative. And that's a problem. Most of these kids were so man. I played on every varsity in high school. I played on every varsity I could in college. I did theater. I did music. I had a quote unquote band. I did every single thing except study in college and high school. I did every single activity other than anything book related. I don't think I even carried books around. I was the only guy in class in literature. It's all girls. So they used to give me notes all the time. They're like, I had long hair. I was much better looking back then. Give me notes, be like, hey, and I'd, get a B. It was fine. I remember the dean of the English department would be like, you don't put any effort in. You put so much effort into all these other things. Why don't you put this much effort in? I'm like, what am I going to do with this? He's like, you're so irresponsible. I'm like, why? He's like, because you're spending money being here. I'm like, I have to be here. If I'm not here, I go get drafted to the army. He's like, the only reason you're in college is you might get drafted. I swear in Lebanon, because if you're not, you get drafted. He's like, that's the only reason you're getting a degree? I'm like, what am I going to need it for? And it was so insulting to so many people. And I had friends in engineering, I had friends in economics, I had friends in medicine who spend 12 hours a day studying, not awake, studying, because you're not awake when you're studying. Great, but that's fine. Some people have a bigger purpose that they think they have a bigger purpose for themselves. So they want to be doctors because they want to help people. I want to help people a different way. I want to make people money. I want to make people that work with me make the money. People that invest in my businesses, I want to make the money. So more like a bank, if you will, minus the thievery.
How's that evolved over time, dude? Like your first concept from Republic to Stereo Arcade to Akiba Dori. How's your business acumen, your approach, your ethos? How you evolved? What do you do different now that you didn't do back then?
I pretty much think I do almost everything the same from a culture perspective. Like, I still give a lot of freedom to my team. Like, I'm not going to ask about, unless I see something that I think doesn't work for the concept, I will never say anything. Like, I will never say, why are we using this fork and knife? Some people get into that much detail. I did go pick up these glasses. I chose them with Joe, so I love them. Like, I love this glass, let's buy it. So I try not to get too involved. I let people do what they know how to do. Because I'm not, nobody knows everything. It's just not possible. And even if you've been in this business for 20 years, even if you're the best restaurateur in the city, when you open a new place, there's so many things to learn. It's crazy. First of all, things keep changing, things keep evolving. There's tech, there's data, there's things to think about you never thought about before. If you're not constantly updating yourself, it doesn't matter how good you are at it, you're going to be out of date.
But like, are you delegating more? Are you building your team? Are you like
the fit out phase? I'm always there.
Okay.
So when we're building the place, that's why when I say I built 6 places, I literally, except for the one in Riyadh and Jeddah, so the 2 in Saudi.
So you're from shell and core until delivery, and then after that, you're
I hand it over to my team. Yeah. So
and when you're like doing the build out, like you're there actually architect, building.
Yeah, dude. When
installations,
everything.
I
come for the inspections when there's like government inspections. I come. I just want to see what they're doing. I want to make sure they're installing things properly. That's your biggest fear. You spend so much time on a design, and then the guy's like, "Oh, I moved it here." I'm like, well, who told you could do that? It looks better. I'm like, I didn't ask you what do you think it looks like, and that happens more often than not. But I think for me, it was more like I love building stuff. So this is part of the brand. I'm building kind of a sub brand here.
And are all of them like exactly the same? Obviously, the spaces are different, so they're kind of molded to the shape. But like, do they all have the same tables, same chairs?
No, not even close. So Akiba Dori, the whole concept of, again, what the reason I called it that, because Akiba short for Akiba Dori just means street. So it's actually a very basic name, but it sounds cool in English. Is on the street you can find a lot of things. So you can find a ice cream joint here.
Yep.
You can find a pizzeria. You can find a bar. You can find a DJ booth. You can find an arcade. You can find a bakery.
You have an arcade here?
No, just a D3. You can find a bakery. You can find a coffee shop. So depending on where you are and which location, we can mold Akiba to fit that location.
Super modular.
That's exactly it. So if it's a smaller space, you do less things. Bigger space, you do more things. In Dubai Hills Mall, for example, it looks nothing like any of them. I just took one element, which is the arches, and made that the hero. Because in Dubai Hills Mall, you're not in a pathway.
Different.
So
vibe.
you don't want to also be like trying to force it, and you're on a corner. So we did a lot of things differently there, and it actually looks incredible. You got to go check it out. Your kid will love it. Charlotte will love it. It's insane.
I was there last weekend, but half the shit's closed. There's like
so
two restaurants that you could actually eat with your kids.
So now we're open now.
Yeah,
So you're
okay,
good.
cool.
So we're open.
Amazing.
First floor opposite the Roxy Cinema. It's actually a pretty sweet location. So we didn't want the design to be a copy in every single place. So if you work in D3 and you have lunch there, but you live in the marina and you want to have, and you come down here, it's a different experience.
Yeah.
The menu changes a little bit. So we have things that we don't have in other branches. So every branch has one pizza that's unique to it. Every branch has something on the menu that's unique to it. We have a milkshake bar in Dubai Hills, like a proper milkshake bar, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different milkshakes.
Perfect audience for that.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't have that like in any other location.
Yeah.
We have a kick-ass cocktail bar here in JBR. We're do the same one in D3. Abu Dhabi has more of a coffee shop vibe as well, because we have a big coffee shop there with baked goods and whatever. So there is something different in each location, so you don't feel like you're just repeating things, which is pretty fun. Like, it's fun to do that, but it's more difficult.
Are you ever fearful that the concept won't work somewhere?
Of course. I'm not fearful, but I know there's always that chance. There's always a chance you open something, you do everything right, but it's the wrong fit. So it could be a price point, could be a design, could be the cuisine. So sometimes you have to go into a location where your neighbors are also complementary and not competing with you. So you don't want to be in a place where you've got like, 4 identical. You don't be a burger shop next to 4 other burger shops.
Yeah.
You can have 2 Japanese restaurants next to each other. That one does ramen, one doesn't. That's perfectly fine. We're right next to Sushi Art in Dubai Hills Mall. We have 6 makis on the menu. That's our sushi menu. 6.
Yeah.
They have like 100.
Yeah.
So we're more
if anything.
Yeah, we're street food. The pizza, all that stuff. So that's what we do. So that all comes into play, and sometimes, again, you do everything right and things just don't work. It doesn't mean that you should, close shop and move on, but sometimes it does mean you have to do that. Sometimes it means it didn't work out. Why spend 2 years trying to make something work? So you're really giving yourself 6 months, I think, in restaurants to make it pick up. 6 months is a good time, which is normal for restaurants. Some restaurants pick up immediately. Like if Zuma opens in pretty much anywhere, it's going to pick up in 30 seconds. Like the day Zuma announces they're opening, they're going to be fully booked. It's a behemoth of a brand. Incredible marketing, incredible PR, so they know their shit, right? So it's not necessarily true for everybody.
Question, and I think we'll wrap up soon, and we'll probably order another drink.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked in a bar, in a restaurant?
No. Never.
How important is that in developing the culture within a market? I mean, people from the market working in bars and restoration. I mean, local staff. I mean, local experience. How much is that important in the experience? When I think about New York City, when I think about Spain, when I think about, foodie cities, a lot of the experience is the local city hosting you, right? So there's the brand of the cuisine or whatever, but there's also the hosting factor of
100%.
the waiter and the bartender from the city. How important is that? And when are we going to start seeing that here in your eyes?
Okay, so there's 2 things that are what's really important about what you brought up is, and I had this conversation actually with Kazim, the CEO of Dubai Tourism, who's a good friend. there aren't enough Emiratis in F&B. When I say in F&B, I mean on the floor, in the kitchens, managing restaurants. They just invest.
But even Lebanese kids that graduate college or are here during college, like that are here.
Yeah, but they're still not local.
Yeah,
You will never have a really strong, like in Lebanon, you'll go to a restaurant, or in Paris, you walk into a restaurant. Man, the chef's been there for 30 years.
Yeah.
How are you going to get that here unless the local population gets into it?
Yeah.
And it's crucial because one, there's a big hospitality culture in the UAE.
Huge.
It's huge. It's the whole country is built on hospitality. That's how you made peace with everybody.
Yeah.
You didn't make peace by waving guns at people. You made peace by knowing hospitality.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the whole culture is like that. But the most number of invites I've gotten to someone's house since I've been here in 18 years has been to my Emirati friends' houses. Unfortunately, I don't go anywhere because I just don't like house things. I'd rather go to restaurants, but it's that culture. Lebanon's the same.
Yeah.
Lebanon's a huge hospitality culture in general, but the two countries, well, Lebanon's way ahead because Lebanon's much older, obviously, and it's been around for, like, hospitality and tourism there were around before the Middle East, like, even know what the hell it was doing. But you have, like, career waiters, career managers. In Dubai, from my experience in the last, let's say, 12 years in this industry, 50% of the people I've worked with, and I've seen in other places, are only doing that because that's what was available to them. It's not like they're in love with hospitality.
Yeah.
You'll meet people who love it. You'll always tell.
Yeah.
When someone's walking up to your table and they love being there, you will tell.
Yeah.
When they're just doing it because they need a job, they're not doing it because they love it. And the CVs we get from people, especially in Saudi, they will do anything to get a job. I would never hire someone like that. Not for me, for their sake. Because they're going to hate what they're doing. Because this is a very
100%.
grueling, difficult task. But the people that are in love with this industry, who do this very well, 99% of the time are chefs. Because by far, the most complicated, exhausting, stressful thing to do in a restaurant is be in the kitchen. It's the most exhausting thing. There's no...
Do we have culinary schools here?
We do not have culinary schools.
So even if we wanted to develop the talent, we couldn't.
Yeah, the only way to do that is to actually go on YouTube and watch videos or
work
go
in a
intern at
restaurant.
a...
Yeah.
So
it doesn't sound like you're optimistic on that front.
the money's not sexy enough in
putting words in your
culinary.
mouth, but
The money's not sexy enough in culinary schools. That's the truth because most
But
of
it
the
was
students,
never about that. Like people who get into like
I agree with
cooking
you.
school, they don't go for the money. It's
So
the
I
art.
think,
They see it as an art.
Abu Dhabi are going to be the first in the region to put together a kick-ass culinary school.
Needs to happen.
It's going to happen. I think Abu Dhabi will do it. I think Abu Dhabi will be the first ones to build a culinary school because Abu Dhabi is the capital, the wealth, but not the population. So when I go to Abu Dhabi for the weekend back in the day, I used to go for a concert. The best concerts were Dubai and Abu Dhabi, but at one point, all the big concerts were in Abu Dhabi. But where do you go eat in Abu Dhabi? Now you have a bit of a food culture growing. There's huge support by the tourism authority there to grow the food culture. Dubai has literally dedicated a team to build like the food festival. And they put money, advertising, time, data, everything behind pushing food in Dubai. And I guarantee you, this is why Dubai became a foodie city. It's not because people were like, we need better food, because the amount of support you were getting from your local government, from your tourism authority, that's how I started thinking. I'm like, Dubai tourism is spending all this money, time, energy, effort into pushing food in Dubai. I'm in nightlife. Nightlife, no one's gonna export a brand. I'm like, food. So if I could build something cool that Dubai tourism likes, or like the local population likes, or the expats like, or whoever, and Dubai becomes like a PR springboard.
Yeah.
Because man, I mean, I remember traveling anywhere, New York, London, people be like, oh, you're in Dubai, and it's like they're seeing a spectacle because Dubai's PR game is second to none. I mean, no one has a PR Dubai has. It's not possible. It's just it's insane. It's insane. I've never seen anything like it. And Dubai grew up with a social media generation.
Dubai is a startup, dude.
Yeah, 100%. And it behaves
startup.
like a startup. So you pivot fast, you make changes quickly. You know what? Combine these
crazy
departments.
ambition.
Yeah, which is amazing. And most cities can't do that or won't do that.
The missing link that I feel that we have, and is the experience, is the service, right? I think what you were talking about at the beginning, like good food, very hard to do, but once you get it, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Good ambiance, good venue, doable, but good service is just very difficult to breed, right? And so,
But that's a global thing.
yeah,
Because, and I blame customers, and I blame myself as a customer. Customers have become so spoiled in general that when you're in a restaurant, you feel like the world revolves around you. When I used to be a customer, I used to think the same exact way.
Yeah.
If my food was late, I would never complain and make a fuss about it, but I would be like,
get annoyed.
like it's annoying.
Yeah.
But then when you get into the business and you see how stressful it is, and they're trying their best, they're not sitting. There isn't a chef in the kitchen sitting and going, "Hey, let's make these assholes wait a bit longer." Nobody's doing that. They're doing the best they can. So it makes you, just like having a kid makes you a bit more tolerant to kids. You know, that's just how it's human nature. That's why I always say empathy is man-made, because you're not really empathetic. You can relate to something if you've been through it, but it's impossible for you to feel empathy towards somebody you've never met and you've never been in the same situation. So unless you're a chef, or you've been in a kitchen, or you've owned a restaurant, or worked in a restaurant, or have a friend that's worked in a restaurant, it's very hard for you to be like, you know what, it's fine. Most people are like, it's not fine. It's the end of the world. The whole planet's gonna implode if you don't get me my food on time, or I asked for extra sausage, you got me no extra sausage. Or I want to weigh the chicken you put in here. I mean, there's some crazy customers out there, and they're not always right. Sometimes they're horribly wrong, in fact, and you don't even want them in your establishment in any shape or form. So the service, it goes back to the service. So even if you're an amazing server, you love what you do, there's always going to be something that is out of your control. So you become kind of like an account manager at a ad agency.
At DBBD.
The freaking creatives didn't finish the work. That's how I learned Photoshop and Illustrator, because the creatives would go home, I'd get into the studio and start learning. Now I'm like super fluent with like both. You know, so.
I have just one final question, dude.
Yes.
And I just want to slip it in here because I think it's bugging me more than anything.
That's what she said.
Yeah. It's not the booze talking. I have like a love-hate relationship with technology. I think a lot of us are from at least our generation are having this kind of dilemma. And I have a growing displeasure with kind of delivery and home delivery and takeaway and that non-dine-in experience. Because I think like it's eroding the fucking point of living.
It's
Life
making
is
people lazy
right?
and fat. Let's not lie about
and
it.
a business model where the more you use it, the worse you feel about yourself. Like, think about it. Like, you actually measure how shitty you are as a human by how many times you ordered in this week, right? Like,
that's a bit.
Like if you think about it, like, how many times did you order this? Order in this week. Oh, I did it like only once on Friday, because like it's fine. Like I let myself go. But if you did it like 4 times, you feel like shit. You feel guilty. Like fuck, I'm a loser. Right? Yeah. So the business model itself just doesn't have legs to me. Now, obviously, you have to do it, and in COVID, like, thank God there was delivery, because a lot more places would have fucking shut down.
Mm-hmm.
But with the kind of advent and push of technology now into kind of digital environments and more delivery and more kind of seclusion and all this shit, how does somebody who basically builds a business on a physical experience, physical brand, feel about the future?
So I was on a panel 3 years ago, and I said I was betting against delivery. And obviously this raised every eyebrow in the room. Like, what do you mean you're betting against delivery? Like, how can you say that? This is the future. A lot of things can be the future. It doesn't mean you have to be part of that future. You have the decision not to be part of the future, which is fine, of that future, right? There are a lot of people that don't order delivery.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that don't. They just don't want to do it. They want to go out or cook at home. It's fine. So again, this is the narrative. This is the train narrative, okay? One company pops up, on paper super successful, PR-wise super successful. Nobody cares about the numbers because you're a customer, you're not an investor.
Sure.
We like things that are easy. I don't cook. I hate the smell of food. This is a whole other conversation. But so I do order in quite a substantial amount of times because it's convenient for me, and I grew up in the Gulf, so it's super normal. Would I rather go out to a restaurant than order in any freaking day of the week? I wouldn't even hesitate to think about it. Ironically, I don't, because once you're in the business, you're in restaurants so much, you're like exhausted half the time. Yeah, exactly. So, delivery. Delivery works for some brands. fails horribly for others. In fact, some brands are destroying their image by delivering.
Yeah.
I believe this. I believe that your money is at your table in your restaurant, not in people's houses. Is it nice that some people can have X brand in their house? It's fantastic. Not everything has to be high-end in catering. Sometimes you just want to have a pizza at home.
Yeah.
By the way, that's the best example, right?
Yeah.
Our pizza delivers horribly. Horribly. I would never order an Akiba Dori pizza in my house, ever. People do it. My friends, I'm like, they're like, it's so good. I'm like, what crack are you guys smoking? It doesn't make sense. It's a horrible pizza at home. When I said that 3 years ago, I wasn't being like spiteful. I have a lot of friends in the market. I have a lot of friends who built businesses around delivery only. But what are you really building? I mean, look, again, I'm not saying this just to say it, but like, if someone like me who loves building brands, and I haven't been excited to build delivery brands, that should say something. I'm not the most successful brand creator. I'd like to think I'm a brand creator, but most brand creators want to create.
Yeah.
But if I don't want to create for delivery, that means I don't believe in that for me personally. Some other people spent a lot of time, energy, money, effort building 50 brands, 60 brands, and they're doing phenomenally well. It works perfectly for them. That's the universe they want to build. So I don't think there's ever going to be a right answer, but the big but that's happening now. I think after COVID and after an experience like a pandemic where people were locked in at home, everybody went out with a vengeance. They want to go out. People want to be out. Nobody wants to sit at home. They want to go out. Man, our biggest competition in D3 was the supermarket. People used to walk there. I'm not saying in general, but like people go there just to get out of their office, pick up a sandwich just so they don't order. So they'd rather go to a supermarket, buy a pre-packed sandwich than order food because at least they're getting out.
Yeah.
And if your whole world revolves around being in an office, get the hell out of there, man. Like just get out, just go for half an hour. So I see the delivery model shifting dramatically in the next couple of years to a hybrid dine-in and delivery, where you have the customer-facing experience because you have to give people an experience, and the idea of just creating 50 brands where you change one ingredient and it's all the same, like people don't know that.
The same 200 ingredients in 30
Come
brands.
on, you can't. It's the same freaking. It's the same maki roll. You just change the name. You don't even. You're so lazy. It's all the same picture. We did that, by the way. We did a second Akiba just to test it out. I didn't even change the pictures. And Deliveroo were like, dude, you're so lazy. Change the pictures. I'm like, nobody knows. Nobody cares. They're like, they all know. I'm like, okay, fine. I mean, it doesn't do well, so it's fine. Didn't really bother me. But you really have to invest in that, and it's a huge gamble. And I think, again, from what I'm seeing, it's over for the cloud kitchen game here. It's over. If you're coming into it now, you're already 2 years too late, if not 3 years too late. So if somebody comes up now and says, I have a great idea, I want to open a cloud kitchen, be like, dude, just give me your money and I'll just keep it. And then, because that's going to be better for you than actually putting it. Because it's done.
But what makes you say it's done?
One, it's not sustainable. There's not enough of a population. I'm talking about UAE here. I'm not talking about the world. I'm talking about UAE specifically. There's not enough of a population. I know what the market spends on food. You can pay $10,000 a year to Mangora and he'll give you the data. I know how much they spend on food. You're not going to see an explosion of 20% more. What are you going to see? 2% a year? So if you're opening at a rate of 50% a year, there's double the number of delivery brands every year. You're not keeping up with anything. All you're doing is you have to keep plugging in. This is like a gambler's dilemma or whatever they call it, where you're in so much debt. You got to keep selling things or moving things around to cover that debt. Your boat's sinking, so you keep, go to another boat, taking bits and pieces of it to patch this boat up. So eventually, cloud kitchens will not be able to sustain. I don't think they're sustainable as it is, but I don't think they'll be able to sustain only doing delivery. They will need to give people an experience. They will need to have a front of house.
But they don't have the capability. That they're not built for purpose.
They can.
They don't know how to do that. That's not their specialty.
They can learn to do it. I don't know how to do it. Nobody knows how to do anything. People that know how to do things don't even know how to do things.
But their business model is based on efficiency. It's based on 100 ingredients for 50 brands. You can't do that if you open a physical experience and make it like all sexy.
Open a food hall. And behind that food hall, you got your delivery kitchen. Do your deliveries, no problem.
Sure.
But give people something. I create a brand, Chris's cheese sandwiches.
Sounds amazing.
It's great, Chris's cheese says CCS. Okay, fine. Or write sandwiches with a C, just be CCC and get sued by CCC. And you have your little kiosk, like this booth back here, and you're selling your freaking grilled cheese sandwiches. That's all you're making, and poutine. That's all you make. Grilled cheese, poutine, and a freaking beef dip, whatever.
Represents me perfectly.
That's all you're doing, right? But in the back, you're making 5 different flavors of poutine and calling it Poutine & Co. Then you're doing roast beef 16 different ways, and you're calling it Roast Beef Incorporated. You know what I mean? So you take that front house facing brand, and you make 5 in the back. This is what everyone's going to be doing. It's just not. It's not that. It's not when is it going to happen. It's who's going to pivot faster. Because I'm telling you, people that just keep opening, plugging in all these. It's just.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm just talking out of my ass for the most part, but this is from what I've seen and from what I've seen happen in other industries that are similar, had a similar growth spurt. Most people that were getting into it to exit. When you get into it to exit, you're assuming there's someone who might buy you out. So you're already targeting a buyer. Yeah. And a lot of cloud kitchens did that. They sold to the guys that wanted to come in from overseas. Exactly. So there's Delivery Hero. So you build 16 cloud kitchens to sell it to Delivery Hero. But if Delivery Hero does their own thing, you're screwed. It's over. You shut it down and go home. It's over. So also raising money for a cloud kitchen. Again, I'm not saying they won't work, but the way Deliveroo did it, for example, with Editions, is they hand-selected brands. They didn't want to make it like a free-for-all things, and that worked for them. Does it work for their brands? Some of them, yes. Some of them, no. Which is why some of them just leave. Time Out Food Hall.
Same.
I think they keep shuffling. They shuffle brands around because obviously some brands don't work. So like, you know what, guys, we love you, but it's not going to work out. Just move along and get somebody else that's new. So that's kind of the idea, and I actually worked on a project like that with a huge delivery brand in 2019. It never took off because the COVID happened when we were supposed to kick it off, but they were thinking of doing that back then, and they're the founders of this whole thing. They're the guys who started this whole thing, and that's how they were thinking 3 years ago. So 3 years ago, the guys who started food delivery at the scale.
But in the last 2 years in Dubai, we saw 2 or 3 new cloud kitchen concepts come out, if not more.
Much more. You haven't even heard of. So during the pandemic, restaurants were renting out their kitchens to cloud concepts.
Kitchens, yeah.
So suddenly you had one small falafel shop in Deira that suddenly had 17 branches. You're like, whoa, these guys expanded. No, they didn't. They just went and took over kitchens, which is great, obviously, for operators, because then, whoa, you're like, somebody's paying you to come use your kitchen. Freaking great, man. It's phenomenal. Thank you very much. But I think, like, again, if someone is serious about food, like if they want to make food, you don't need a chain. You don't need delivery. You need a kick-ass location. Small space, start small, grow it, and this is how that's the way to go. My first bar was 200 square meters, or not even, maybe 190. It's a cigar lounge. I put some lights and sound in there and made it a club/bar. But yeah, I think the delivery market, it's not sustainable anymore.
Yeah.
And again, if anyone came in this year or is thinking about coming in, they're too late. They're too late. They're gonna burn the money.
Samer, your vodka pizza is
it was good, right?
Crazy.
You only had 2 slices though.
Yeah, because I didn't just want to eat while you talk. Your drinks are phenomenal. Akiba Dori is a fucking hit, man. I love it. Thanks for doing the fucking podcast. I think really overdue.
I hope you have to edit a lot of the nonsense out.
No, man. It was amazing. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
I'm gonna
having you as well. For letting me have you here.
But let's do it again sometime, man.
Yeah.
Maybe in Jeddah.
In Jeddah, actually, yeah. Do like an old school reunion. Go to Gulf Royal Chinese and do it there.
Exactly.
It's still there. I was there.
No, I know. I was there like a year ago.
Yeah, I was there like this November when we opened Akiba. I took my guys there.
Amazing.
I took Luigi.
And the menu hasn't changed either.
Nothing has changed. Even the decor looked like they just came in and.
I'm pretty sure the staff is the same.
I'm pretty sure there's a guy who's been there for 20 years.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, man.